Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Marilee.
Hey, guys. If everybody can turn on their cameras and their mics.
Sorry, I'm going to mute mine because my dog is going crazy. But good morning.
You'll just have to unmute it whenever you say present.
Yeah, I will.
I hear your dog. You might hear mine as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call. And if we have a quorum, we will start. Randall Brown is absent. Kim Bazile.
Here.
Mike Billings.
Here.
Mary Tarver.
Here.
Liz Gary.
Here.
Natalie LaRose. Charlie Michel.
Here.
Susan Reen.
Here.
Jamie Tyndall. So we're good. We have a quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will so Randall is not here and Mike is filling in as the chair. So I'm going to go ahead and let Mike, if you just have any introductory remarks or anything like that you want to share, I will open the floor for you to do that.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see we have a quorum this morning, can move forward. I just kind of let Marilee run the show today, and we have a lot of ground to cover and a set time to do it. I just want to try to keep us on our time frame and not run over today. I know a lot of us schedule around these Zoom meetings, and if we can try to keep it on our task to finish on time, I would appreciate it. And like all of you, I may have to dart off several kids in the house. And so if I disappear from camera view, that's where I'm at.
Okay, great. So we have had a couple of meeting attempts, and this is our first official meeting. We have a quorum. That's exciting. So I thought it would be a good idea if I'm just going to invite all the members. We can go around and you guys can just share a quick introduction, your name, if you're here as a member of the committee from the council or from the public, and just anything relevant to, I guess, why you're on this committee that you would feel like sharing or anything else. So I guess I'll just go down the list of people present. Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Bazile. I am a parent and I currently sit on the council.
Mike.
Good morning. I'm a parent for Region 2 on the executive committee. And I think this committee is important. Over the last year, we've had several reasons that we need a grievance policy. So I hope we can hash one out.
Liz.
Hi, good morning. I'm Liz Gary. I'm from the Region 9 area. I'm a parent. I've also been advocating in the state of Louisiana for at least 15 years, both at the state level and also federally. I've done some stuff, and I think this committee is very important because as the partners coordinator for over 11 years, we did not have a policy in place for grievance. So I think it's very important that we make sure we get some policies in place so that we know and families know what the chain of command is. Thank you.
Mary Tarver.
Hi, I'm a parent in Alexandria. I have an 8-year-old that has Down syndrome, and I've been on the council for several years, and I'm on the executive committee. And I also agree with the other comments. It's very important to have a streamlined process and a clear message for everybody that have a process, and it's something that that is really important to have in any business or organization. So I think we've got some important work to do, and I'm happy to be on the committee.
Charlie.
Hi there, I'm Charlie Michel, and I am a parent of 2 adult children with disabilities. I am a retired 34-year educator, not 34-year-old, 34 years in education. And the reason I think this committee is important is because it's sort of an extension of what I've been doing for the 34 years I was in education. Whenever you're dealing with people's children, with their livelihoods, with their education, there's always going to be conflict. And I think having a policy that's clear, concise, and easily implemented it makes the difference between civil disagreement and chaos. And I think that this meeting is going to generate some things that's going to keep things civil, so that we can stick with the issues and not with personalities. So I thank y'all for inviting me to be on this committee.
And Susan, I think, is our last committee member.
Good morning. I am Susan Reen. I am the Executive Director of Families Helping Families of Southwest Louisiana. I have 2 children, 40-year-old and a 32-year-old with a disability. And I guess I'm a committee member from the public, and I agree with all the views that have been expressed, and I'm here to help as much as I can. Thank you.
Great. And I think everybody will probably recognize me, but my name is Marilee Andrews. I work at the Developmental Disabilities Council, and I will be the primary staff contact for this committee's administrative needs, questions, anything like that. A couple of you have been emailing me questions, and that's good. That's what I'm here for. I'll complete housekeeping items. I'll take roll, do the quorum, make sure we have it, create agendas based on the will of the committee, the calendar for our meetings. I will compile information that you guys find or need or think that you want, and I'll share it. After each of our meetings, I will draft a summary, and I'm going to send it to the chair for approval. And after that, it will be on our website. Any public groups or individuals that would like to comment or speak can contact me to coordinate doing that at our upcoming meetings, or they can do it just at the meeting. At the end, we'll have public comment. I wanted to give you guys a quick summary because we've been kind of everywhere with meeting, and then of course the coronavirus shutdown. So this committee was formed in January at the January council meeting. There are a couple motions made, but ultimately it ended in this committee being made to look at grievance procedures and make a formal grievance policy. Our first meeting attempt was in March. There was not a quorum, so there was no business done. The second meeting was in the middle of being scheduled, and then the shutdown happened, so we stopped scheduling it. And then, so this is our actual first full meeting. April was the chair of this committee. Because of her passing, she is not here. And Crystal had volunteered, Crystal White, a council member, to be on this committee, and then she withdrew that shortly after. So the members present, or the members on the agenda, are the members that we have today. You guys all received a lot of documents, both electronically and in the mail. This was kind of from a brainstorming session, which I'm calling it a brainstorming session because it wasn't an actual meeting in that first time we tried to meet in March. So I went ahead and compiled and shared as much of that as I could. Hopefully you guys have reviewed that ahead of time, and when we get to that part on the agenda, you all might have some input or thoughts on that. I would like for us to take a 15-minute break around 11:30 or wherever we fall, where we're maybe done with one agenda item. So if anybody wants to help me remember that, that would be great. So the first thing on our agenda, officially business-wise, is I want you guys to kind of talk about the charter. So I created a committee charter that just kind of fleshes out a little bit what I think that you guys want this committee to do, what I think the full council wants the committee to do. I think it's helpful to have a charter. It makes sure that we make good use of our time. It prevents confusion down the road. And it ensures that we, or you all as a committee, create the end product that is really the goal of this committee. So I'm going to open that up to you guys to discuss.
Mary Lee, I just have a question. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm jumping in, but I'm trying to find where I raise my hand and I don't see that. So just for reference,
I'm sorry.
like I see chat and everything, but I don't see where I can raise my hand. I don't want to just jump in. Is that on here, or am I supposed to just raise my hand like this? What do you prefer? Or Mike, I should ask you, I'm sorry, Mike, what should I do? Raise my hand or just try to jump in when it's silence?
Well, I think with the size of this group, we could probably go either way, but the raise hand function is at the bottom of your screen where it says participants, and then it opens the little window, and then there's a button at the bottom for raise your hand. You're not unmuted.
I'm sorry, my button doesn't show, I don't have a raise. Oh, never mind. I found it. Okay. Okay, I'll be prepared next time. May I speak?
So I'm not looking for that, but they'll let me know if somebody electronically raises their hand. But yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead, Liz.
Thank you. Mary Lee, I guess the question is with the charter, is this, or what is the thought process on how long this ad hoc is going to go? So I'm assuming if we're creating a charter, then we're thinking that it's going to be more than just 1 or 2 meetings, that it may be something that goes for a while. Am I reading into that correctly, or you can have a charter with only 1 meeting?
So I didn't create the charter with the thought of how long this committee will be in existence. I just created it because I think it helps keep a committee on track, and it helps them create the final product that they want. So I don't have like a time restriction on if you guys get it done in 1 meeting, that's great. I would think that's unlikely. I hope, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So has everybody reviewed it?
Yes.
Any input? Do you guys like what it looks like? Do you feel like this was the intent of the full council's motion? Do you think this will be helpful?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I think it's very good to have the specific responsibilities of the committee outlined for us. And it will keep us on track, because ultimately the goal is to propose a formal grievance policy for the council's consideration. And that's what we're here to do.
Okay, great. Would you guys like to vote on it? Or do you want to, anybody make a motion to adopt it?
Mary?
I'll move that we adopt the ad hoc, the charter as written and submitted for consideration.
I'll second that.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you.
Liz, did you second?
Slow on the buttons.
I did, Mary Lee.
Okay. Sorry, I have a Word document open, so I can only see half you guys while I'm typing. Do you want to, Mike, do you want to ask about objections or abstentions?
Yes. Also, I'd like to, it looks like Natalie LaRose has joined us. Do we have any objections? Any abstentions? So the motion carries.
Mike, there is a question from the public from Karonda Corley.
Mama, what's on my head?
Rhonda?
Mike, it's a question in the chat. Did you want me to read it, or was there somebody else going to read it?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see. Ms. Corley asked, question, can you please inform the public where they can access these documents or provide a link for the public to review? Thank you kindly in advance. So all of our, Haley or Ebony, would you guys mind just putting that link in there so I can keep moving forward with the meeting? But the short answer is it's on our website. If you go to 2020 meetings, they're in chronological order. And I think this one's at the top because it's the most recent, and you can click on that and it has the agenda and documents linked. And I believe this charter is linked.
I can add the link, Mary.
Thank you, Ebony. Thanks so much. So Mike, are you okay for me to move on? Mike, are you good for me to move on to the next agenda item? Okay, the next thing is it was suggested that you all are able to see and review LDH policies on grievances, families helping families, and DD councils. So we'll start with LDH. I went ahead and pulled that for you guys, and you should have received that. So LDH has a couple of different types of policies that you all got. I just sent everything that was grievance related. So there's one on employee conduct, there's one on workplace violence, there's one on sexual harassment, and then they have what they call an actual grievance policy. And then that's right, they have a form, an official form for that goes with their grievance policy. So I would like at this point to open it up to the committee for you guys to discuss these policies that I'm sure you all reviewed ahead of time, and tell me, just share with the committee what you guys like, maybe what you don't like, things we definitely should include, things maybe we shouldn't include, and we can kind of start narrowing down specifics for the council.
One of the things that I liked about this one was the form. What I found, I've worked in places where they have a form like this and places where they don't. What I find with the form is it lends structure, and not so much for the DD council's sake, but anyone who wants to lodge a complaint, it has a nice centralized place of what it is that you need to do, who you need to do it with, and what your time frame is. So the form is just a reflection of the policy, but it just makes it more user friendly. So whatever policy we end up with, I think a grievance form would just add to the efficacy of that policy.
Okay, so I have that we should have a form that goes with our grievance policy. Would you guys prefer me to walk you through each one? Mike, I think Liz physically has her hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Thank you, Mike. So I agree with Charlie. I do love this form. I think it's great because not only does it ask for the issues, it kind of goes back and forth to make sure that they are pleased with what is, with the response and if it's acceptable, meaning the employee and supervisor. The only thing is that, this particular grievance policy, of course, talks more about if you're an employee working at LDH under your supervisor and how to go through it. So I think some of the information was good, but it didn't really directly impact the fact that if family members or others were concerned with a grievance, how that would work, unless I read this wrong and misunderstood this. I just want to make sure that when we're discussing it, we're focusing also on not so much of an employee under a supervisor, but if there was a parent who had an issue with an employee who worked under LDH, if that makes sense.
Look, I'll be honest, I didn't read all of these policies, but reading through some of the Families Helping Families one and the LDH and a couple of other things, I think most of them addressed it as though it were an employee. My thought was, because the scope of our work is going to be different, we can replace immediate supervisor with fill in the blank executive director or whatever the position is that we want that to go to. And we can decide as a committee where that would go. So, and that to me could be universal for everyone. It doesn't matter if it's an employee. It doesn't matter if it's a council member. It doesn't matter if it's a community member. It stays generic and it just keeps it clean.
So right now y'all are discussing LDH's grievance policy, not the other ones?
Not yet. No.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
The scope of this committee I thought was grievances. So when I saw personnel and all that other stuff, I thought that was extraneous. I didn't know exactly why we got that.
So I just included it in order to give you guys all of the information that I had. That's what was asked of me to do. So that's what I did. It's
okay. I wasn't criticizing. I just wasn't.
Oh no! Yeah.
I'm criticizing you. You'll know. I promise. I'll tell you. Okay.
Oh, Charlie, I already know.
I just wanted to clarify. So right now we are talking about the LDH grievance form.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we like it. That's what I'm hearing. The council likes LDH's grievance policy and the form that goes with it. And Charlie, you talked about replacing immediate supervisor with what? Because
whatever position this committee determines is the person who should be the go-to person. Because I don't know if it's going to be like the executive director of the DD staff. I don't know if it's going to be the chairperson of the DD council. Whatever, we just need to decide who's going to get these complaints or these grievances.
So is that something you guys kind of want to discuss now?
I see a hand raised.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is the time, Marilee. I mean, I'm not sure what the procedure is, but I think it's important definitely that we do look at the fact that there's listed. I think it's going to need to be listed, not just, I think it's several levels. Charlie was mentioning, whether it's going to be the executive director or if it's going to be the chairperson. I think we need to have several levels in place just to ensure. I think we always have to follow the chain of command. I think that is the most important thing of all. So if it starts out that your grievance goes to the specific person and then it goes to the executive director and then it ultimately goes to the chairman, I think there needs to be all defined in here as to what the proper chain of command is. And at each level, what response is going to be given to that specific person. And if that person is not satisfied with that response, how it moves up the chain of command. So I think it's several layers, not just it goes one place.
And in addition to that, Liz, there also needs to be some sort of a mechanism in place in the event that I have a grievance against the person to whom it's supposed to be filed to. You want to have, if my grievance is to this person, then I would give it to this person instead. And it might be just the next person on the chain.
Absolutely.
But I think personally, I think we need to look at that because if we got to be careful, because if we do that incorrectly, we lose a step in the grievance process. So if my grievance is against Liz Gary, and that's what I'm supposed to send it to, but then Liz would be moving it up to Michael, where if I give it completely to Michael, then there's a whole step in the process that has been bypassed. So there might have to be Liz or her designee, or, you know, we might have to look at that. From a
Agree.
So
Agree.
historically in different departments, the way I've seen it done, and I'm just going to give you guys this information. It is stepwise, like you guys said. And let's say the grievance policy says you submit it to Liz Gary, and then Liz submits it with her recommendations to Charlie, or just as an example. But my grievance is about Liz. Historically, the way I've seen it done is you just bypass Liz and you send it to Charlie. And you do have to bypass that step, because the other option, like you said, is Liz's designee. Well, if the complaint is about Liz and we know Liz doesn't like this complaint, her designee may be someone that is her friend, or that maybe she directly supervises, who might feel uncomfortable looking at that complaint objectively. So that's just some information that I'm sharing with you guys of how I've seen it done.
If we do it purposefully, regardless of the outcome, as long as it's purposeful and we don't have unintended consequences because we overlooked something, I think we can make it look like whatever we want it to look like.
Yeah. So is this something you guys think you need to do some homework on your own time, and maybe on our next agenda item, you guys have some more specific suggestions about that? Or did you guys want to discuss it here further today? It's 10 o'clock. We're doing pretty well.
Yeah, Natalie LaRose had her hand up and then it went down.
Yeah, Mike, I was just, I wanted to address that the public does not have access to these. So, I mean, I know if I wasn't part of the committee and didn't already have these papers, that would be pretty frustrating, considering this is supposed to be an open meeting. Is there a way for us to go ahead and get them those? I know Ebony was working on that, but it looks like she was saying that they weren't able to be linked.
Yeah, so it is an open meeting. That's sort of irrelevant to how many documents are on the agenda. I think there was a technical issue when it was uploading, and it was a lot of documents to scan. So that was just an oversight and a mistake.
Well, is there a way that they can just get this grievance form that we are currently discussing? Because that is not irrelevant.
Yeah, no, the documents are not irrelevant.
We put a link to where it's on the LDH website.
Yes, I mean, you could find it on the internet.
Yeah.
But after this meeting, I will make sure that all these are scanned in.
And then we have public comment, several about the documents, and then which we're trying to resolve. And then we have one from Sharon Dufresne, who is going to determine the outcome of the complaint. And that is the process that we're currently working on, I believe, would be the answer. And then I have one from Cody, who says her hand is raised. I'm sorry, Cody, I missed that. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, can y'all hear me? Okay, hi. Thank y'all. I think Liz and Charlie definitely hit on, and even Natalie hit on just the concern that I have is that having those multiple layers. So if my grievance is with Liz and perhaps my grievance is with Liz and with Charlie, I think it's worth considering adding a third party, a third neutral party, potentially someone at LDH Legal or LDH HR, who is separate from the direct issue in the event of extraordinary circumstances that I would have a grievance with the two people already designated on the council and would not feel comfortable airing it to the person I have a grievance with, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Cody. Karanda, you have your hand up.
Great morning, Mr. Chairman and Ad Hoc Committee. I have several questions that I would like to raise. One, if we're in compliance with open meeting law, according to open meeting law, the public is supposed to have access to this document within the 24 hours before the actual meeting takes place, and we did not. We just receiving the actual link right now from Liz Gary. Secondly, how will this form apply to transparency for the DD Council? Will this document be posted for the public to review? So I'm saying, as far as in, if I was to file a complaint, hypothetically speaking, how will the public know that I actually filed a complaint? How will the public be aware of the complaints being filed? Also, the public is unable to access these documents, like I stated. Also, a person cannot investigate themselves. So that would be an ethical violation. So if somebody had a problem with somebody, hypothetically speaking, like you, Mr. Chairman, I'm just using you as an example, Mr. Chairman. I don't have no problem with you. But if I had an issue with something that you did and I filed a complaint, you're not supposed to legally be able to investigate that situation. It has to be a unbiased, non-party investigation. So I want to know, what steps are we going to put in place as a DD Council to ensure that ethics are still being followed, but there is transparency for the public. Also, I'm also concerned with how many people were actually informed and made aware of actually being able to be a part of this actual committee. When was that information disseminated to the public? Because I'm actually receiving a lot of information with these questions as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. First, the motion for the ad hoc committee, I believe, was made at the January council meeting. And that's when the committee was actually formed and and notified that there was going to be an ad hoc committee. We're getting a lot of questions that seem to be wanting to know what the final policy is going to look like and what it is and what the form is going to be. And that's what we're here to decide today. We're at the very first step. We're nowhere near the middle, nowhere near the end. This is just kind of the gathering everybody's thoughts on what it should be and where it should go. And that's our goal, is for transparency and avoiding any conflicts of interest or ethics violations or possible ethics violations. That's the committee's goal. And this council, this committee is, heading in that direction. That's what we're working towards. I hope that answered your question.
And if I could, I don't know who would be doing this, if this would be Mary Lee or us or whatever, but one of the things I'd like us to review is, what are the requirements of notifying the public of grievances? My experience is that grievances are not publicized. They're not posted on websites. They're dealt with privately through the standards that are set forth in the policy. But I've never worked in a place where if I had a grievance against Liz, and I wrote it up, that whatever agency I was submitting it to would publish it. I just have never seen that. So I'd like us to see what our legal requirement is, either allowing it, mandating it, or forbidding it. Because to me, that should be part of this. Since the question came up, I think that should be part of the policy. So again, that adds to the transparency of why we are doing or not doing something.
That's a very good point, Charlie. And also, we need to make sure that there's basically a whistleblower type procedure in place, because it could be somebody with a issue with somebody that were, like you were saying earlier, direct report, or some major issue that needs to go higher. So a lot of that is in confidentiality, and we need to maintain that as well. And just so, let me catch up on comments here.
Mike, you can start around 10:04 with Sharon. Most of the other things I think were covered. Okay.
Hey, Mike, before you go, I just want to make sure Coranda had all of her questions answered. I don't want us to like skip over that. Do you mind if I address that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I typed everything he said. So I will take responsibility. I had a technical issue uploading the agenda that had everything linked. And I think it was the number of scans. I do think we're still in compliance with open meetings law, but I'm not an attorney. Mike answered a lot of your questions about what's this going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of what we're doing today. This is our first actual meeting. And then you asked about how to join the committee. So at the January council meeting, the executive committee recommended the council establish an ad hoc committee to develop a grievance policy and procedure. Crystal White, and then seconded by Phil, asked for the council to consider including members to sit on the ad hoc committee. Then Mike, seconded by Kim, opened the floor for people to volunteer to serve. And it sort of happened right there at the council meeting. People said, I will, I will, I will. And then it was brought up as a concern that some FHF people weren't at the meeting and that they might want to be on this committee. So then I reached out to all of the FHF directors. So I hope that answers your question. And I'm not sure if there would have been a better way to do it, but that is how the events played out. So back to you, Mike.
Okay. And then we had a comment from Liz Gary pointing out that the January transcript is on the DDE website under the January meeting, and that motion is on page 114. And then let's see. We have one that's requesting that public comments, this is to the panelists, and they're requesting that we hold the public comments basically to us 1 point so we can move along with the meeting. And let's see. And then Coranda with, we need to make sure legal is consulted and this form procedures are for compliance. And of course, we will do that. Let's go before the full council. Like I said, this is just basically the first introductory meeting and starting in this process. So that looks like everything right now. So if you want to move on to the next step.
Liz has her hand up.
Go ahead, Liz.
Hey, Mike, I noticed one right before my pick where it said January transcript. There's one that Sharon Dufresne had put there. It didn't go to panelists and attendees. It looks like it only went to panelists. So I don't know if you see that about, there should be a, can I read it? I'm sorry. Or do you want to read it?
Yes, go ahead.
There should be a standing committee to address grievances received. It should reflect the diversity and host both parents and self-advocates as agency rep and staff member for support. As these are serious issues, the committee should host more than one parent and more than one self-advocate.
Thank you for that. Mary Lee, we make a note of that as well, please.
And if I could just address.
Sure, Liz.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, more than one parent and more than one advocate?
Advocate.
Should reflect the diversity of hosts of both parents and self-advocates, agency rep and staff member, and they should host more than one parent and more than one self-advocate is what it stated.
Got it.
And I just want to address that I think it's a good idea to have a panel that is consistent with reviewing this information or these concerns. We do those panels like even with RAC meetings and IFS, individual family support. There's a panel of people that sit around to determine whether or not they're going to give the money out. I know it's not, it's a different thing, but you're still looking at confidential information and you're still looking at to determine whether or not these people, you know, and what they should be granted. So I don't think that I think that's a great idea from Sharon, that you do get make sure that there's other people involved who are reviewing these grievances to make sure that it's satisfactory and that more than just a few eyes are taking care of what's going on.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And again, I'm the one that calls the caution. I agree that that's a good thing, but we need to make sure that if we're going to create that sort of a committee that's going to be reviewing it, we need to identify positions on that committee, like parent, self-advocate, whatever that is, the roles of them, and a set number, 3, 4, whatever. But it needs to be a rolling membership, because we fall back into that situation where if it's the same 3 of us all the time and the complaint is against 1, 2, or 3 of us, then it is problematic from the transparency standpoint and from the efficacy of results. So we want to make sure that we identify roles as opposed to individuals. And then we have to identify who's going to name the individuals on that committee based on the complaint. So just a part of the process. Mary Lee, you asked me to be here yet?
Say it again.
Are you sorry you asked me to be on this committee yet?
No, I'm baking, guys.
It's early.
There's nothing more interesting than a diverse conversation with many different people. Okay, so I have all these notes. I'm trying to, at the same time, copy and paste them for the assignments part of our agenda, but you guys should just kind of try to keep this in mind as we're working as a team. Okay, so we're still in the LDH policies. We figured out that you guys like the grievance policy and the grievance form. I would suggest, it's 10:13. I would suggest deciding if we're going to dig into that now, or deciding if we're going to assign this as homework for you guys to read every page and come back with some more specific information of what to actually write down into our policy, or somebody to start a draft. So I would defer to you, Mike.
Deferring to me. My thoughts are that we probably need to do, I would recommend homework on this.
Okay.
And everybody gather their initial thoughts and then come back to draft, but I leave that open to the rest of the committee. Liz has her hand up. Go ahead, Liz.
I think we definitely need to do homework and come back with some information, but I also think that this conversation right now is pretty robust. So I would hate to not continue forward just kind of with open discussion, kind of as Marilee's taking notes, because I think the notes that she's probably capturing will help us guide as we read, to be focused on some of the things we already addressed. So I think it's probably important to continue thinking of ideas and talking it through at the same time of still going deeper into it to make sure that we have a policy that is very strong.
I agree. And also maybe if as part of that homework, if we could start work on developing like a flow chart of where these procedures would go for both us and for future use once this is rolled out.
I think that's a great idea, Michael. Thanks. We have I don't know if we're still taking comments, but I know that there's a few more comments that were noted on the chat.
You have a member with their hand up.
I'm not seeing the hand up.
It's Kim. She has her physical hand.
Oh, sorry, Kim. Can you go ahead? Change my view.
Thanks, Mike. Has anyone, because I just thought of this, contacted ITAC to see if they have grievance policies or sample grievance policies that other DD councils use?
So Kim, that is something we talked about at the first meeting attempt. And that's a little bit further down, but we can certainly jump to it, is to find DD Council's policies. We talked about sort of not reinventing the wheel. We're sure we're not the first council who's had issues like this, or maybe even the exact issues. So that needs to be an assignment. And you guys can talk about that now if you want.
So has it not been inquired of ITAC yet if they have some grievance policies or samples?
So Natalie, I'm gonna give you kind of like the summary, and Liz, you can jump in. We had volunteers at the last failed meeting that had no quorum about gathering information. So Liz had volunteered, but I believe she wasn't comfortable actually moving forward to get that information until there was an actual meeting with a real quorum, and that she was sure that that was the will of the committee. But Liz can elaborate on that.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, no, that's correct. We had talked about it, but since it wasn't a full quorum and it wasn't a technical meeting, I did not feel it was right for me to be calling councils to say that I sat on a grievance committee that had not officially been started, and there wasn't the blessing to actually have me do that. So because of that, I did not move forward. I did not mention about ITAC. So I had mentioned about the DD Council, different areas to call, but I think ITAC's probably the best place to start there and then possibly move down. So I don't know if that works best for Marilee to reach out to ITAC, since Cheryl Matney has been around first, and see what she says. If I need to call, I'm happy to do whatever is the will of the committee.
Go ahead, Charlie.
What is ITAC? I'm sorry, I probably should know that, but I don't know what that is.
I'm not sure of the exact acronym,
Oh,
but you have it? Anybody else have it? It's a. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, it's the informational technical arm of the National Association for Developmental Disabilities Council. So they are the technical and assistance side of them. And so everyone who has a council belongs to NADDC, and they give money to the NADDC to get feedback and information. And so that's the technical assistant part that basically provides that information to the different DD councils. And Cheryl Matney is over that, who came to Louisiana last May and again in October to provide information. So that's who ITAC is, and it's funded through the different councils. And I don't know how NADDC, I don't know if NADDC is required under the DD Act, but they basically guide everything. They're not the arm, they're not the federal arm, they don't provide the dollars, they just provide the guidance. And they're like an organization group, is my understanding.
They're very helpful all around.
I think that would be a good route and good action to pursue if somebody would want to take that on, and we could get a motion, we could move that direction.
I would make that motion that we contact ITAC.
I don't know who's saying that.
I'm sorry, this is Natalie.
Can you turn on your camera?
Yeah.
I think Liz is correct. It would be appropriate for staff to reach out to ITAC, but I certainly don't have to. I'm really just here for housekeeping and to help the committee get their business done. So the actual work should be mostly divided among y'all. But for ITAC, if you guys want that, I'm happy to reach out to them. But that would be really the will of the committee. I don't want to overstep and have you guys think that I'm talking to ITAC or something without y'all's knowledge. So I'm gonna let you guys tell me what you think.
And I'm happy to reach out to if it's the will of the committee, whatever is the will of the committee.
Okay, so there's Natalie. So Natalie has a motion on the floor that we reach out to ITAC to see if there's any established grievance policies by councils, I believe. Is that a good summary of your motion, Natalie?
Yes, that would be good.
Do we have a second?
Mike, I'll second it. It's Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have any comments?
Well, first ask if there's any objections.
I'm sorry. Any objections? Any abstentions? Any public comment on this particular item?
Sharon has a comment in the chat.
I've seen her comment and we're going to address it, but it's not particular to this. It's regarding the grievance filings. So hearing none, this motion carries. And since we're a little break between items, I'll go back and address the comments. So we have one from Coranda that says the panel should embody the DD Act with complete diversity and inclusion. And we have one from Sharon Dufresne that says, I disagree. Grievance committees need training. It can exist for a time duration as in 3 months. I disagree. It should be a rolling committee. Save my last comments if we will not discuss committee makeup, which we will eventually be setting the committee makeup, I believe is what we agreed on. And from Sharon Dufresne, also because grievances should be held in confidence, the DD should still maintain document online, giving the generalities of grievance filings, data filings, general category as in open meeting, and disposition such as findings issued or in progress. There should be a component to file anonymously. I agree, not staff. Committee meetings should bring research to the table. And that was the end of the comments, and Natalie has her hand up. Go ahead, Natalie.
Hey, I'm sorry. I don't know how this works, but can I also either add to that motion or make another motion? I'm not sure what I need to do, but that it be Liz that reaches out to them, since that was who she had already. I don't know if I even need to make that motion since she was already designated to reach out to people anyway, but.
I don't believe the motion was specific on, was it, Mary Lee, on who it?
No, it was not decided that Liz would reach out, and the motion didn't include that, but we can informally you guys can informally decide that now. So Liz, it sounds like at least one committee member wants you to reach out to ITAC. Or does anybody else have input on that?
Kim?
I'm good with Liz reaching out, since she is the one that actually could explain what ITAC was to some people.
Yes. Anybody that doesn't feel comfortable with Liz reaching out? Okay, so Liz has volunteered for that assignment.
And I'm happy to do it. I just wanted to make sure it was on the record that it was requested before I did it. Thank you.
So Liz, just so I'm clear, we're thinking only ITAC and not all the councils?
No, I'm going to reach out to Ms. Matney first and ask her if she has anything or if she has any records because, you know, one of the things I've noticed, and it's pretty clear, even like with the FHF centers, that a lot of the grievance procedures are very similar. So I'm assuming that based on a contract with somebody, it must have stated that there was a grievance procedure, and it's kind of like a rough draft of a lot of familiarity. So she might have something that has been used in the past for other DD councils. It's very similar to LaCia, which is the Louisiana Special Education Administrators, whenever there's a new law that's passed, they get their legal department to write up and draw up a thing, and then they all kind of pretty much copy the same thing, just specialize it to their district. So I'm thinking that if I talk to her first, she might already have something that's legally been approved by the feds as something that could be used as a grievance procedure. And so once I hear back from her, if that's the case, then I don't know that I need to pursue individual counsels. If not, then I can pursue individual counsels, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay, we have 2 public comments in line with this. And from Sharon Dufresne, Liz asked ITAC to send documents to support your conversation with them. And from Karanda, question, can you please have the response be provided in writing for transparency, accuracy, and reliability?
Absolutely. I will do nothing that's word of mouth. I will have something in documents in writing, then I will not move forward without that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Marilee.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the FHF policies if everyone is okay with that. So actually, I have to thank Ebony. She helped me compile this. And we have all of the FHF policies, which you all have received. Has anybody reviewed it? Okay, I'm seeing nods. Does anybody want to start us off on things they like or don't like, or similarities or differences on how these policies might be with the councils?
Go ahead, Kim.
Am I on? Can y'all hear me? Okay, because I did a spreadsheet yesterday and it actually compared, I stopped when they all started looking familiar, but I like that there are timelines where it's usually between 3 and 5 days. Now it doesn't specify if it's working days or calendar days from when the incident occurred to when it goes to the first person. And I'm not saying we should use these numbers, but I like that they give parameters of when the step should occur and then who it goes to next. And at last, when it goes all the way through the process, it says that the board would make the final decision and there is nothing after that. So I think I'd like to have ours modeled after that, where there's a specific timeline and where the final decision will come from.
Yeah, and I agree. When we do the timeline though, I think we need to make sure, because Kim, you made a good point, it needs to be specified work days. Because if the office is closed for 2 weeks, for Christmas, let's say, or the council is unavailable for 2 weeks or whatever the deal is, it's just too hard to get people together when there is no expectation of a meeting. So it needs to be a certain, and I think because it's a council and not a business place or a school setting, the time frame might need to be stretched out a little bit more. Because we're always at the office. So if somebody in my office has a complaint, we can do it within 3 to 5 working days, and that truly isn't a problem. But a council that meets quarterly is not going to be as readily available.
I'll also say, to your point, Charlie, if you guys decide that y'all want to loop in pieces of LDH itself, whether it's LDH legal or LDH's HR department, we're also going to have to play by their timeline. And we're probably not going to be their #1 priority. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yes, Kim.
I'm going to throw this out there, and this may be too long of a time frame, but since the council meets quarterly, maybe we have standing and this is a suggestion, standing grievance committee, whoever is appointed to it, meetings the week before council, just so that people know. But then again, if someone submits it August 1, which is right after a council meeting, that may be too long. Just throwing ideas out there, seeing what will stick.
That's a very valid point.
I think that's a great point.
I think that's a good point also. And I think that also maybe if we're going to have like a standing committee that addresses these things, if we should, you know, kind of look at how often they should meet to be able to address things in a timely fashion.
So Kim, were you saying, is that what you're saying though, that they meet? Yeah, that's what she said.
Not the ad hoc committee to form that committee, but the new committee. So we're saying the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, but also you would want them to be able to address it on a timely basis. So you wouldn't want to wait if it was filed at the beginning of a, say, immediately after a meeting, you wouldn't want to wait till almost the meeting. So we need to work on some sort of time frame of when something's filed and then the steps it would take with different time frames throughout before getting addressed by the.
Yeah, that was my intention, Mike, was what you're referring to, is maybe we should look at like every 4 to 6 weeks or something. I mean, I'm just throwing these numbers out there, but you know, just, I don't know, but just maybe we should look at how often they should meet.
Right, and it may end up being it may be as needed. You know, if you say we're going to meet every 6 weeks and you have nothing, or you may have meet every 6 weeks and have 10, and then overwhelmed at your 6-week meeting. So, you know, those things we need to consider and possibly take a look at.
So I think we should ask, oh, Liz just stepped out. I think we should ask Liz to pay special attention to that whenever she does her homework with ITAC.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because I'm sure they've had this same discussion somewhere across the United States.
And I have a couple of comments that I'll address real quick. Sharon Dufresne says these issues should not be determined by the council as a whole. Only a recap, maybe have the advocacy center on the committee. People will hesitate if they know their issues will be discussed in a public forum. And then Karonda question, can the DD Council please continue to restate that nothing is being set in stone due to the public not having access to this information according to Robert's Rules of Orders, open meeting law, and Louisiana ethics. And Sharon Dufresne, grievances need time to determine. Findings to include having the committee allow the person filing to appear before the committee to ensure their grievance is fully understood. This could take weeks. Grievance committee should meet as needed and quarterly before council meetings to provide an update. And I don't see anything else right now. Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay, just want to point out there may be some confusion on open meeting laws. I think if the agenda is posted in sufficient time, that's what constitutes an open meeting law. There are frequently meetings that are open to the public where all the information is not available to the public at large, sometimes not even at the meeting until after the meeting. So if we could stick to the topic of grievance, I'd really, and no one said anything's going to be set in stone. So I'd like us to just keep moving on with the topics and not the pet projects, if you will.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that.
Yes. We have a public comment from Cody Wilson. I would suggest possibly that a disability rights ombudsman be considered for the makeup of that committee, not necessarily by a standing council member. We have a comment from Sharon Dufresne. It's hard to stick to the topic when we have no documents, no idea what the documents include. So do we have anything else that y'all want to address right now?
I don't know if we wanted to continue discussing about the frequency, or do we just want to like table that until we've been able to do more homework?
I think it would be wise of us to kind of table that time frame, and let's see if there are some existing grievance policies that we may be able to tag along. We ought to definitely keep it in mind and keep thinking about that part for our homework with like the flow chart and the outlines of the policy.
Okay, so in that spirit, we are on the DD Council's policies. What we've talked about is they were not compiled ahead of time. Liz is going to reach out to ITAC. Kim likes the timeline. Oh, no, I'm sorry, FHF. Kim likes the timeline. We talked a lot about the timeline. We're going to table that for our next discussion when we flesh that out a little bit more. Anything else on the FHF policies that anyone wants to share? Mike, I think Kim has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Kim.
Marilee, can you just give us a quick and dirty of the path that you as an employee under LDH would have to go? Like, you would go to your immediate supervisor first, I'm assuming. And then from your immediate supervisor, if you're not satisfied, where does it go after that?
So that is a good question. I think that working at the Developmental Disabilities Council is a unique place to be in LDH, because we fall under LDH sort of because we have to fall somewhere, but we're not really under LDH. So if I had a grievance, I wouldn't, as far as I understand it, and it's never been explained to me in a clear way, but from just my own legwork, I would go to LDH. I would go to LDH's HR. I would walk out of our building on Main Street and go to the Bienville building and say that I had a problem.
Okay.
That's how I understand it. It was never explained to me.
So it's not even something where you would have to go to your immediate supervisor necessarily about it, that as far as you know?
If I wanted to make a formal grievance complaint, no,
Yeah.
I would go to LDH as far as I understand it.
So if you had, and if Ebony, you're on the call, that's why I'm going to use your name, but please know this is all made up. So if you had a problem with Ebony, you would not go to the ED first. You would go straight to HR.
Well, see, that's where I guess I need, if I had a problem with Ebony, like
if there was a grievance against her.
like
could be.
something with weight, like she was harassing me or bullying me.
Yes.
I
ED, or would you go to HR?
I would probably feel more comfortable going to LDH.
But not what you feel comfortable with, what you should do according to what is
So
written.
all I have to go.
Employees.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Say it again.
Okay, what is written down for you to do for LDH employees? Because I'm assuming you get a W-2 from LDH, therefore you're their employee.
Right, yeah, no, I am an LDH employee.
Okay.
I think probably LDH's policy would say the first step would be to talk to my supervisor.
Right. I was gonna jump in and say that, and even at our staff retreats that we've had in August, since I've been there, that's the policy. And I apologize, my son is with me. That's the policy. So I would go to my direct supervisor first, and then if it wasn't handled there, we would go to his supervisor all the way to the ED. And then I want to say, and I don't have it in front of me, Kim, I apologize, but I want to say if we weren't satisfied with the ED, we would go to the chair of the council. But don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure about that. But I know for sure that we would go to our immediate supervisor first. And then if I wasn't satisfied with that, I would go to his supervisor or her supervisor.
Hey, Mike, I don't know if it's, please tell me if I'm off base. Can we give them a little homework and see exactly where they would go? Because if I understand it, the council only employs the ED and the ED employs all staff. So I don't see if Ebony had a problem that she would somehow wind up with. It's just confusing.
It is confusing, Kim. I'm confused.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said I'm not clear. It sounds like Ebony has more light on this topic than me.
Yeah, Mary Lee, could you look into that for us?
So it's, yeah, I will.
The policy for y'all.
I will. I'm going to say off the top of my head, just let me write down my homework. Mary Lee, what does staff do?
That could be very important for the committee as well, because if there's a grievance against a staff member or
Right. So, I mean, I'll do the homework. I think this is where I get confused. I don't know if it's going to be a DD council. Oh, Mary's raising her hand.
Mary, go ahead.
I think that we had looked at, I mean, I think we had this conversation before whenever we were having these discussions a while back, but y'all are employed by the state. So you follow the state grievance process for associates, but for this committee is working on what to do for parents, for council members, for the public about grievance. So this doesn't have anything to do with your employment. That goes through your employer.
That's true.
And so we don't need to be involved in that aspect of it because you're employed by the state. So I would think that would be, you need to follow those guidelines. This shouldn't, I think that this committee was looking at grievances from the public and other committee members or people on the council.
Good points. Thank you, Mary. Kim?
Mary, help me understand. So when we make up this new grievance committee, that will be the end all? If a parent goes to complain to the grievance committee and they don't like the outcome, there won't be anything higher for them to go to? That's why I was asking Marilee where they fell under, since if we fall under LDH. Do you see my train of thought?
If the grievance, if somebody had if I had a discussion with Marilee and I felt like that I needed to let the DD council know that there was some issue going on, she's not professional at a meeting or whatever, I think we would, that still would go through that would be an HR issue because she's an employee of the state. But it could go, I think we might need to carve out a piece if it has, but it's coming from, not from them, but from the grievance process, that it would be a council member or a member of the public that would have the grievance, then it would still go through the grievance process. If Marilee and Ebony have a problem, that has nothing to do with us because they're both employees of the state. So I guess that was kind of what my point was, the difference between it.
No, I understand that.
File a grievance grievance against one of them because they were doing something that you didn't agree with. But if it's something that's happening in their office, then that doesn't have anything to do with our grievance committee.
Okay, well, what if Susie Q Public has a problem and she files a complaint with the grievance committee, and they go through all their steps, whatever these steps are, and the grievance committee comes back to Susie Q Public and she's not happy? We need to know where she would go from there.
I mean, I guess that would be some of the technical assistance that we could get whenever Liz finds that out. Because, you know, at some point you're going to have to reach a decision. It can't just dwell out there forever. So I guess that would be more of a technical like question of what our possibility, you know, what the possibilities are. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Mary, you have your hand up?
That was it. I was just going to say, I thought that if you know, you could still have a grievance against somebody who works on the council and it would go through the grievance committee, but between them, that wouldn't have anything to do with what this committee is doing, I don't think. I'll unraise my hand.
Natalie?
Unraised now, or is it still raised? Sorry, I don't know.
It's down.
Mary? It's
Okay.
down.
Okay, thanks.
I was just curious if we were still going to ask Mary Lee to still go ahead and like see what that policy would be. I'm just curious, and since we're looking at other grievance policies and how that works, I would just be curious as to what that policy would actually be, but I don't know if we're still requesting that or not.
So I think, and Kim, tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm gathering. In your mind, there was a connection between what an employee, no.
I just wanted to know, since we fall under LDH, I was assuming we would have to follow kind of sort of the same hierarchy as you as an employee, but not if we had a problem against an employee. I was just trying to figure out the hierarchy.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So it sounds like it's not relevant for me to do this homework.
Let's wait for Liz. We'll wait for Liz.
Oh wait, Liz is back?
No, I mean, Liz get with ITAC.
Liz
Yeah,
with ITAC. Just to give you guys a little bit of information, you already have LDH's grievance policy. That's what I would think I would do. And I just scanned it and it says I would go to my immediate supervisor. And then if I wasn't happy, I would go a delegated appointing authority in the employee's chain of command. So my supervisor, or the ED.
Go ahead, Liz.
I think where it gets confusing is the fact that the DD Council is technically its own entity, although it's supervised under LDH as the designated state agency. I think it gets difficult as far as holding accountability as far as where does a parent go. And I think that's, I'm guessing that's where Kim's going. So if we had a problem with a staff member and that staff member, let's just say, is classified like you, then you go to your person, but then where do we go? Do we go to you and then your person above you? And who is that person above you? Is that person above you your member at the DD Council, or is that somebody at the council and then it goes on to LDH? So although you're under a grievance policy with LDH, it's still not clear how families would do it. It's much clearer when you look at a Families Helping Families, because you go to the staff member, you go to the director, and then you go to the board. It's much more difficult trying to figure out exactly where this chain of command falls at the DD Council. And I think that's what's so important, is to make sure before we start putting all this in place, we truly understand what levels are and where does it go and who answers to who, to make sure that we have this policy and procedure very, very streamlined and very accurate.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Liz. That's good stuff.
Okay, can I address comments real quick? From Susan Rain, the documents only include the LDH policies regarding grievances and the FHS grievance policies, if that helps. From Sharon Dufresne, I'm wondering whether the FHF centers would share if they've used these policies and met with any difficulties, and explain how LDH is not your oversight. And then Charlie replied back, I haven't had to use this process in my 2 years at BLFHF, so I have no frame of reference for that. But I was part of the grievance procedure on numerous occasions while serving as a special education director in a local school district. Because the policy was very structured, we really didn't have any problems with its implementation or coming to resolution. From Coranda, exactly how are you attempting to create a grievance complaint procedure and make it completely inclusive if this committee isn't including any self-advocates in according with the DD Act? Susan Dufresne, once a grievance committee is formed, a meeting should then contact the aggrieved. Staff should never be the point of contact nor triage grievances in any capacity. The current partners in policy making grievance has gone nowhere after being sent to the executive committee. Parents can file with any investigative agency if not resolved. Provide that contact list with the findings. From Coranda, Sharon, thank you for stating these pertinent facts. For our hierarchy, the NA, DDC, and ACL should be contacted for their information. From Kathy Dwyer, if a complaint involves an employee, then LDH process should be followed. The committee needs to figure out process for complaints against non-employees, i.e. a DDC member. From Coranda, some of the problems we are facing is partially due to individuals not knowing the law, how it applies, rules and responsibilities in the governing authorities. We should consult with legal and our federal governing authorities. Y'all for the comments.
Sharon has her hand raised, Mike.
Keep changing my view when I get to comments and I can't see that. Go ahead.
Comments again.
Am I up?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to remind everyone that the committee is going to be comprised of volunteers, parent advocates, council members, self-advocates, if you put someone from the community on this. So to be so structured as to learn all of the rules about this is just not a possibility. So, but I do feel like a grievance committee should be established and should be maintained for a period of time, because there needs to be training put in place in how to conduct a grievance interview and how to get more information if you need it, just all of those things. I think that's extremely important, that we don't just have a bunch of people get together and talk about it, because right now there's a grievance that has been, the council's been informed of prior to October of 2019, and it has gone nowhere. And one of the things that the executive committee did do was call LDH. Well, here's the deal. LDH should not be involved if the grievance is against the council or council staff, because they're the oversight committee and they are very familiar with all of these people, and I have seen the bias in place. So the grievance committee should be the first and last stop. It should be, the grievances should be held in anonymity, because people are not going to want to come forward if they know that you're going to stand up at a quarterly council meeting and discuss their grievances. Because if you decide that person didn't have any, there was no value to that person's grievance, that is unbelievably wrong to get up and shame a parent or a self-advocate or whomever files this. And the other thing is there's definitely a hierarchy. If a parent is or the aggrieved, sorry guys, if the aggrieved is not happy with the findings that the committee produces, then there's the ethics board, there's boards and commissions, there's the IG. There are plenty of investigative agencies out there that they can file that grievance with. And something the policy should actually state is that the person who is aggrieved will not file with any of these investigative agencies until the findings are produced by the committee, or the committee needs to drop the findings. You cannot have multiple agencies looking at the same complaint and kind of competing against each other with the right findings. So though all of these things are like, there's a lot of nuances. I really think that homework is needed for this, but I appreciate the starting point that you've established today. And that's all I have for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Good points. And just, I'm trying to recall, but it's, you know, it's been, last few months been pretty hectic, and I'm not sure on my mental recall, but I believe that one incident, we did send a letter. I believe there was that letter was sent at the request of the executive committee, if not the full committee, to OIG, LDH, and the board of ethics. But I can't swear on that, but I would check on that.
Yes, I think you're right. I recall there was a motion maybe to send it to everybody.
That's right.
And I do tend, this is just my 2 cents, I do tend to agree with Sharon on that point. Is when you have multiple investigative agencies looking at the same complaint, it sort of muddies the water. And then you're in a real dilemma if you get back 2 different conclusions. So that might be something for you guys to think about, the order that you're going to go in.
And Mary Lee, it is something that's good, because you don't want to have multiple agencies, like you said. But I'm concerned because the only way that works, and it should be in place, and I think we need to put that in there, but those other agencies need to have that as part of their procedure as well. Because if I do a complaint through whatever process we come up with here, and I do it with one of those other agencies, what's to stop the other agency from accepting it if they don't have some stipulation that it's not being reviewed by some other agency? So that just, I don't know how to make that work. I think it's a great idea and necessary, but we have to look at how we would make that work. Because then do we just, when we find out that the other agency is investigating it, do we then just stop the complaint process at that point? That's gonna have some optics problems as well.
Well, I think that would, I mean, number one, I don't think we can govern what another agency does. We can communicate and let's say this is our policy and we'd like you to help us follow this policy. So when you get a complaint, let us know. But then that in itself might have bad optics, where the complainer's thinking, oh, well, I filed with OIG, and now OIG is talking to the council on if OIG should even validate my complaint. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you have to put some responsibility and trust in the person filing the grievance. And if you guys decide, first we're going to do the DD Council's grievance policy, then if you're not happy, our policy says you go to the OIG, for example, you're asking them to follow the DD Council's grievance procedures because they're filing a grievance with the DD Council. Then if they don't, and they say they do both at the same time, I think the only option, this is for y'all to discuss, would be for the council to say, we're in a tough spot now. We can't do this. You filed it with someone else. So that's something for y'all to discuss, because you certainly can't ask the OIG to drop a complaint. That would, number one, I don't think you can govern another agency, but number two, I think that would really upset the person who filed the grievance.
Right, and I'll take a minute to go back on comments. Find where we left off here. Let's see. I'm sorry if I'm repeating one I've already, but I believe this is where I left off. Kathy Dwyer, if a complaint involves an employee, then LDH process should be followed. The committee needs to figure out a process for complaints against non-employees, i.e. a DDC member. From Karanda, some of the problems we are facing is partially due to individuals not knowing the law, how it applies, roles and responsibilities in the governing authorities. We should consult with legal and our federal governing authorities. I'm sorry, I'd already read those. From Kathleen Canino, sorry if I didn't pronounce the last name right. Is the public allowed to serve on ad hoc committees with DD council? The answer to that is yes. This was opened up to public when it was formed. From Kathy Dwyer, if aggrieved is not satisfied with outcome, an appeal process needs to be established. And Sharon Dufresne, Mike, the grievances have not been resolved, or they are not even on the agenda anymore. The agencies you sent to have timelines. Has anyone contacted these agencies? That needs to be addressed. And Charlie, agencies do have this in place. And yes, the aggrieved should be given the choice of where. Look at agency complaint forms online. They ask if you filed elsewhere. Kathy Dwyer, the DDC is unique because of it being mandated by the DD Act. So information from ITAC and other DD councils will be helpful. And from Kathleen Canino, are the committees with the public servant on it in line with the DD Act? And that's all for now. And then Sharon Dufresne, community member serving on committees is in the bylaws, has been for decades. Okay, anybody have anything else? Yes, Liz.
I do agree with Kathy Dwyer with her statement that we need to make sure, I'm just speaking this out loud so we can add to it, but I do agree that we need to make sure that there is an appeal process in case the aggrieved is not satisfied, that there is a way to go back or go higher up based on that and make sure that that's clear as to how that looks.
Yeah. Mary Lee, are we between speaks and no break time, or?
Mary Tarver.
Mary Tarver, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, I was just going to say that when you look through the Families Helping Families documents that were provided, that there is a section about family grievance policy and how it looks. So I think, you know, while there is a section in all of those about associates or their employees, there is a section about families. And so looking through those, you can see that generally they're going to say, you know, report that to the executive director, and then they have a timeline about how that looks. So I think, you know, it would be, because we have so much work ahead of us, we need to make sure we're just carving out that associate piece. Don't worry about them. We're looking at how a family can make a complaint. And you can see in there that they do have a way for them. If you're not satisfied, you can appeal to the board in the entirety. And then that gives them a address on where they send that. And then the board has 30 days after the appeal to set a hearing with the family and an individual with the grievance committee appointed by the board chairman. And so there is a process. And so I think, you know, we've got some groundwork, but I have high hopes for Liz and the technical assistance that we can get for, you know, for us to move forward with this, because I think that that we all want to make sure that there is consistent process, that there is a way to have a grievance looked at, reviewed by the committee. And what I've seen in some places is that you would be appointed to be on the grievance committee, and that committee may be in place for 6 months, and you only meet when there's a reason to meet. And after that time, you may have a new group of people and they're in charge, because it's going to take, time, effort, and responsibility for the grievance committee. And so you wouldn't want the same people to be on it all the time. And I think that would be a process that we could look at, and how you would implement that grievance, like ad hoc committee, that it would just stay in place. And you may have like a chairperson that's going to be there, and that may be the, member at large on the executive committee might be the person that is, that person is always there, and then everybody else rotates. So I think there are going to be lots of examples that we can use that are already got a lot of the groundwork set. But I think this meeting is important for us to kind of put our spin on things and make sure that we're going to look for specific things that we're asking about today. So I think we're on a good path, but we know that we've got a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Mary. Natalie, we're going to hear from you, and then we're going to take a break.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with what Liz and Mary just said about that. I think that what they said was very good ideas. But I did also want to follow up and say that grievance that was filed has not been resolved, that there has not been any answer that has come back as to how that would be resolved. So just wanted to second on that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess because I'm the only staff here, well, Ebony and Haley are here. Do you guys want me to kind of push that up and see if there could be some resolution or answers on that? I'm not super familiar with what you guys are talking about, but I can ask. I'm just—
Go ahead, Liz.
privy.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Marilee, because I think that also is going to help in line with what we're doing right now to see what has been done, what the process was, if anyone's responded to that, and if it's even been sent out, because I also was not aware that it had been sent out. And I know, Mike, you said you were not sure and you thought, but I definitely think it's something that we need to look in and make sure, because it was going on for quite some time. And it, as far as we know, it has not been addressed, and there's no response that came back to the parents at all. So it's not even a matter that it hasn't been resolved. They've not even heard back. So I do think, Marilee, I would ask that you would move forward, if that's your pleasure, to be able to do that, because I think we do need that to help us, guide us in this particular grievance plan.
Yes, I agree as well. And I think that I hate to say that it could have possibly got lost in the shuffle between the shutdown and April's death and the March meeting and all. But yeah, that's definitely something that we should follow back on.
So it's obviously important. This is the thing though. I don't know how you can explain to me what exactly I'm following up on while maintaining some confidentiality. And this is a public meeting right now. So I don't know whoever made the complaint. Can they let me know? Or
it's the PIP grievance. I'm pretty sure everybody knows about it by now because it's been mentioned in multiple full council meetings.
Yeah, Marilee, if I'm remembering correctly, we had drafted a letter, and I believe the council, I almost swear the council voted on it.
Okay. Oh, Liz, was this yeah, this was like, I think this was right.
This actually took, the last time it was talked about was in January of this year. And then I think the EC committee talked about it in February. And from what I remember, the last thing is that Randall was going to have to, I don't know if he was going to talk to somebody or send the letter to somebody. That was the last I could read in any of the follow-ups. So I'm not sure the letter was ever sent.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and read the.
Okay. So I'll just do some research on that. And I'll hopefully come back with some more information.
Okay, can we take a break now? Everybody good with that? And can we meet back at, let's go to 11:30, start back at 11:30? Okay, I thank y'all for, we've had a lot of good discussion, good input. and hopefully it'll carry on after the break. So we'll see y'all at 11:30.
Thanks, Mike.
Can y'all hear me? All right, it's 11:32. We can go ahead and get started.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick roll call and make sure we still have everyone present. Kim Bazile, Mike Billings,
Here.
Mary Tarver. She's not here yet. Liz Gary.
Here.
Here. Natalie LaRose. Charlie Michel.
Here.
Susan Reen.
Here.
So that's 5. So you guys have a quorum. So the place we left off, we were kind of wrapping up FHF policies. We talked a lot about that. Next on our agenda would be the council policies. We discussed that previously. Liz is, hey Liz. Mike, Liz has her hand up.
Yes, Liz.
I'm sorry, I wanted to ask this question before we took a break, but I'll ask it now if that's okay. It goes back to FHF policies. I just had a question. I noticed that a lot of these policies are very, very similar. So I'm assuming they got together. I'm assuming, so I should ask a question. Were these done like as a standard form from somewhere that a lot of them are similar, or was this something that each one did individually? Because a lot of the verbiage and stuff sounds a lot alike. So I didn't know if this was something that had been done overall or if each one was individually done.
Go ahead, Susan.
So the way it happened is as we started looking at grievance policies and procedures, what we usually do is share amongst ourselves. And then we individually enact those policies or work with our board of directors to, because you'll notice there's some that are a little bit different than others. So we kind of just share amongst each other, all the centers, and then, but they're all individual policies. I mean, while they might look very alike, they probably came from one, but morphed at one center into something else. So that's my remembrance.
Are they required for y'all under any contracts or anything? Is that why all of them have it?
I think some of our contracts specifically say we have to have, I don't know that they're specific to grievance policies, but it's good nonprofit practice to have policies and procedures that include whistleblower policies and grievance policies and family grievance policies, et cetera.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's just basic HR. Any business, whether it's a nonprofit
Correct.
or whatever, public agency, private agency, they're expecting you to have that, because if that crops up, you have certain HR rules that you have to follow.
I actually forgot before we jump back into the agenda. So I did a little bit of legwork, and as I understand it, the PIP complaint was sent, offices were contacted, that were asked to be contacted, which was LDH's HR, Board of Ethics, and the OIG. That's really the responsibility of the chairperson of the council. So I believe April worked on that prior to her passing. And at this point, it would be Randall's responsibility. So I don't want to dip my toes into it much further, just for optics. So I would encourage, it sounds like nobody is clear on where it is. I would encourage you guys to reach out to your chairperson of the council.
Yes, thank you.
So the next thing on our agenda was DD council policies. We kind of talked about that, and we're gonna have Liz reach out to ITAC. That's what I have down. She's nodding. So the next thing on the agenda is assignments. So I'll just read out what I have and we'll go from there. This is from Charlie. What are the legal requirements in making a grievance public, mandating a grievance be public, or forbidding a grievance from being public. So that is something that was asked that you guys wanted to know. I don't know, it might make sense for Liz to ask that when she was with ITAC. I don't know the thoughts of the committee.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Everybody else can give their input.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea too, because just to make sure that we're doing it right. And look, I'm gonna tell you, I was a teacher or in education for 34 years, and I'm a firm believer there are very few new ideas, only new people to steal ideas from. So if Liz gets some good ideas from it that covers the scope of what we need to do, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just maybe need to tweak it to meet specific needs.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Charlie. I agree. So Liz, are you okay with taking that responsibility?
I'm sorry, repeat. Yes, I am, but I just got the last part where basically the question is it mandated? Is it mandated to make a public grievance policy public? I'm sorry, is that correct? Was that the question?
Sort of. It's postured a little differently.
Okay.
So the debate from the public is these should always be public, and then no, these should always be private. And so then Charlie raised the question, what are the legal requirements regarding the anonymity or the publicity of a grievance? Legally, is there a standard? Are we required to make them public? Are we required to keep them anonymous? We don't know. So I think that would be something that ITAC would.
Well, I'll ask ITAC, but I have a strong suspicion they're going to say that you need to check your legal department at your state or whatever, or something like that, or federally to determine whether or not you can do something like that, is what I'm suspecting. But I will check with them on that, absolutely.
And then maybe they'll have just, if they do say that, maybe they'll have their best practice or recommendation or something. Then next, I suggested, because we sort of narrowed down that LDH's grievance policy was good, I would suggest, and this would be at the discretion of the committee, for everyone here to go home and read the LDH grievance policy, read the form, and come back with edits, language that we like, just kind of more specific highlights. And then that could be combined with what Liz brings back from ITAC. But that's a suggestion, so I would need you guys' input or approval.
What do y'all think?
When I was writing it down as homework, what I was thinking of doing is going through and sort of reading not just the LDH policy, but reading the LDH policy and the generic portions of the Families Helping Families policies and sort of synthesizing. Because I think there's going to be some elements of the Families Helping Families policies that would be more applicable to what we want to do than LDH policy. So then when we have some kind of synthesis like that with a unified purpose, and then we get the information from Liz from those 4 letters, IT, whatever it is, then we can, I think then we can start building upon that. And that should put us in a good starting position to be able to get a procedure up and written that will meet the needs of our specific circumstances.
Anyone else? Susan, is that your hand up or no?
So I have down assigned to all, read LDH grievance policy form and FHF grievance policies and come back with language you may like to use in our draft.
Mary, do you have your hand up?
Well, I mean, I've briefly looked over them and then I've printed some of it out again today to refresh my memory, and it's not that much that's there on the Families Helping Families. I think we're going to get the most bang for our buck out of Liz getting some information for technical assistance and see other DD councils that have a grievance policy rather than Families Helping Families. I mean, I don't think that there's a whole lot there for us to build from. It just gives you a general idea of what they do.
Well, I'm definitely hoping that Liz has good luck with getting information.
So do we want to just maybe remove that as an assignment? And ITAC will be our starting point? Or do you guys want that as an assignment?
Anybody?
I'm going to do it anyway, but I think we're going to be hard pressed to move forward until we get the information from Liz, because I think Liz is going to have the best, the results of her will yield the best information for us to move forward. But I just want to have a frame of reference better than what I have now when we get that information.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Charlie there, that I want to go pull from these. But I think if there's already a council grievance process that's going to direct us pretty much where we need to go, we can just tweak and personalize and make it specific to our state council.
Okay, so I'll just remove that. The other thing that was talked about, and this again was before ITAC, was creating a kind of a flow chart of procedures based on the way the homework is shaping. I would suggest waiting to do that, because I mean, you make your flow chart after you have an actual process.
And we may end up with a process that already has a flow chart.
There you go. Okay. Also, Liz, this is for you. I think you had stepped away when this was talked about. Just paying special attention to the timeline within any policy you might receive. So that kind of falls under the same thing.
Marilee, what do you mean by that? Special attention to the, here's what I'm planning to do. And if I'm on the wrong direction, I'm planning to reach out to Cheryl and ask her for any documents that she has that they have provided to other DD councils for grievance procedures, anything that relates to grievance procedures, if they have a standard form that people have been sent or any kind of thing, anything that I receive from her will come straight to y'all. I have no intentions of doing anything but getting the information directly from her so that I can present to you. If she's unable to provide me with information, then I will ask her if she can direct me as to another area, agency, or how to go about it. So I'm only strictly using what she gives me and then her guidance to move forward for that. If there's something else I'm missing, I don't feel like I should be doing anything or tearing apart anything, just bringing it straight back to the council. Is that what the will of this committee is?
Susan?
I think so.
I'm having trouble with my speaker. I'm sorry. I think that, am I still muted? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I think Marilee was referring to the timelines that Kim liked on the Families Helping Families documents, or putting in specific timelines to what we recommend. Is that what you were talking about, Marilee?
Yeah.
Or am I confused?
No,
Okay.
you're perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry. So then translate back to me. How does that relate to what I'm doing with the stuff from Cheryl? I'm sorry. I must have missed something.
Yeah, you had stepped out.
Okay.
It's really not, I mean, I guess I could just, if it's confusing, I could just put it for our future agenda items. And Kim, jump in if I'm misspeaking or to comment. Kim had talked about, she really liked the timelines where you're sort of mandate, it just makes sure things flow on time.
Right.
And the discussion was, let's make sure to pay special attention to that when we get the policy or policy template.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
You're already getting it and it's coming, and I don't think anything's going to happen in between. I was just voicing that. Since
Okay, I apologize. I wasn't clear. I thought you were asking about making sure there were timelines on the documents. I understand what you're saying now. I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really our only assignment, you guys. So it's all on Liz. We're relying on you for everything. Moving on, future agenda items. What do you guys think?
Hand up.
Yeah, won't that kind of be driven by what information Liz gets from ITAC and how we proceed from there?
Yeah, so we'll have ITAC review. That'll be one. Anything else? We're just kind of thinking our next meeting will be mostly digging in there.
I believe so. If anybody else has input?
Okay, good. I wanted to talk about the future meetings schedule. So we're almost done, although I do usually have public comment at the end, and we've kind of done it in between. But if there's more public comment, then we won't be almost done. But I'm just saying that to say, let's say we end at 12. That shows us that we need like an hour less for this type of meeting. It was initially scheduled for this huge chunk of time because that's what was voiced as the desire. We can keep it just easy, 9:30 to 1. Everybody always says it's 9:30 to 1 on whatever day. Or we can shorten that, make it 9:30 to 12 on whatever day. We can make it even shorter. We can, do we want to meet monthly? Do we want to meet quarterly? When do we want our next meeting to be? Do we want to put on the calendar all of our meetings, like our next 5 meetings, and then cancel the ones we don't need? Or do we want to do it one at a time?
I think right now we're kind of hinged on getting the information. So say when Liz can either find information or find out there is no information, then we could schedule further out. But I think we do need to schedule our next meeting, and I kind of like scheduling for this time period in case we need to go that long. But if we can wrap up earlier, then it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
And Liz had her hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say my intent is as soon as we close this meeting out, I've already looked up Cheryl's email and I'm already comprising an email to make sure I send it out today. So that is my plan, to get on it as quick as possible to get that information back so we don't have any more delays.
Okay, so with that being said, when do you guys think it would be appropriate to meet next?
Do we want to make that contingent on Liz getting the information?
Oh, I see what you're
Move us all.
Don't schedule anything until Liz emails the group or emails.
I would think so. When she gets us some information, then we should be able to schedule. I would anticipate she's able to get that rather quickly, and she could just let you know what she has, and you could send us out a schedule and or a poll to make sure we can schedule on the same day. If everybody's agreeable.
And I'm going to kind of take a different vantage point on that. I think while we're all here, it's easier to maybe get us to come into agreement with a meeting time, because Liz sounds like she's about to get on it and it's probably not going to take her long. So let's just make sure that there's enough time for us to be able to do that. Maybe 3 weeks or so, like August the 12th or 5th or 19th or something like that. Enough time for her to do what she's got to do, and maybe even for us to review it prior to the meeting, but not so much time that we lose the momentum that we've got with this discussion.
I would tend to agree with Charlie. It's usually better to get something on the calendar.
It's hard to arrange a meeting with a bunch of people via email.
Right.
I know. Believe me, I know.
I fear that things will just get pushed and pushed and pushed if we don't get it done now.
I was pleasantly surprised. I opened it to August and it's blank.
Mine just says pandemic.
So would you guys like me to run through some dates? We're thinking we'll start, it's July 22nd. Start looking around August 19th.
Oh, I think that's too long.
That's what I was thinking, the 5th or the 12th.
Yeah, I was moving even, yeah.
Well, okay, good. So August 5th. And I guess before we start this, do you guys want it the same time, 9:30 to 1?
Okay, I know that I'm not available on August 5th. I'm sorry, I have to presentation that day, but I'm available the 4th or the 6th.
Okay.
If it has to be the same on Wednesday, that.
Okay, but before we start going through the dates, let's decide the time. Are we
I think
doing 9:30 to 1? Or do y'all not like that or what?
9:30 to 1 works for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
let's-
fine.
Everybody likes 9:30 to 1. Okay, great. So not August 5th. So I'm sorry, I can't do August 4th.
I can't do the 6th, but I mean, I'm just one person.
August 7th is a Friday.
I'm good on the 7th.
I'm good on the 7th.
I'm good on the 7th.
I'm good.
4, 5. Okay. So we'll do 9:30 to 1 on August 7th. It will be this, oh, Brenton just texted me. Thank goodness. He says he has that date set kind of for, oh no, he said not the 6th. So the 7th should be good. Sorry, guys. So we'll say August 7th from 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Let me just triple check on our website on events to make sure there's no other meetings that maybe I'm not privy to that are on that date that some of y'all might want to go to. Oh, there's nothing updated past today.
There's nothing scheduled.
Oh, hey, Hannah.
Y'all are first dibs.
Thanks, Hannah. So we'll say 9:30 to 1 on August 7th. I'm sure it will be Zoom like this. And it will be the same format. I'll send out an agenda. I will ensure everything is linked on the agenda to the extent that I can. And then we're thinking,
Can we get the information that Liz is going to collect prior to that meeting so we can review it prior to the meeting?
yeah, so would you guys prefer just Liz send it to all? Or I guess it would be better if she sent it to me and then I send it so that you guys aren't discussing and accidentally create a quorum on the side. So is it okay with everybody if Liz sends it to me and then I send it to everybody?
Yes.
And I usually just do that in BCC everyone so that it doesn't unintentionally create an email thread and then you guys might have accidentally created a quorum and are having business. And then Liz, if for some reason you feel like that's too soon or something, we can just reschedule.
That will all totally depend on how quickly Cheryl can get back with me with information or information she doesn't have.
Right.
But I'll let you know.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, and then the next thing is public comment. I know we did it during the meeting, but this is the place I have earmarked for public comment. So I don't know if Mike, you want to take over?
Yeah, we do have a few more. From Sharon Dufresne, says the council mandates a grievance policy for FHF. Kind of ironic. Investigative agencies in virtually every corporate office allows for anonymity. Can the transcripts be copied? That's question mark. ITAC and the agencies that host investigations, ethics boards and communities, IG office, etc. And then Kathleen Canino posts a link to the Texas DD Council policy, complaint procedure policy. And Karanda replied to that, thank you kindly for the link, not to mention that's our neighboring state that shares the same legal jurisdiction. Sharon Dufresne, someone should investigate the importance of anonymity. And Karanda, in the meantime, how will the DD Council address any complaints? Will we continue to not address them? Will we continue to not allow their voices to be heard, eliminating an inclusive environment with transparency? How will the public receive the information considering we did not have access to it in accordance with the law?
I don't understand the questions.
From Karanda?
To the documents merely, like when, are you going to post them?
I was
to
at the top. What, I don't know what Sharon's asking. Can the transcript be copied?
Yeah, I'm not sure what transcript she's referring to. Is Sharon, are you still on? Got a couple of hands raised.
Oh, Sharon has her hand raised. Oh, I guess.
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Ebony, do I have to do something to make it so she can speak?
Oh, no, that was me. I forgot to unmute.
Oh, okay.
I have a tab I've never seen before in a Zoom meeting, and it says under more, it says view full transcript.
Oh.
And so when you go there, virtually everything that has been said has been recorded. So I thought it would be great to capture that because I know I threw out a bunch of things that the committee really wasn't ready to address, but are sound practices from other agencies and whatnot that I've sat with or dealt with. So I just thought it would be great to be able to capture that. And I tried to copy and paste it and I couldn't. So I was just wondering if somebody knew how to capture that transcript.
Okay, so Sharon, I'm actually, I guess this is like a Zoom feature and it's doing it automatically, but you'll see one of our attendees, her name's Lindsay Abear, and she's a captionist, and she's doing this meeting. So normally,
Can I ask, are all council subcommittees and ad hoc being captured via transcription by transcriptionists?
say it again. I'm so sorry.
Are all committees, ad hoc, standing, whatever, EC committee, are they also being captured by a transcriptionist?
So I'm not sure if they all are. I really don't have the best answer for that. I know that.
Find out what the best answer is, please, and I will put my email address up in a second, and you can answer that for me.
Yeah, I can do that. I was gonna say, let me go put that on my homework. Oh, Liz has her hand. Mike.
Yes, Liz.
Didn't the most recent council meeting state that all future meetings were going to be transcribed? Or did I?
No, yes, but I was hesitant to do a blanket all.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure, like, if the executive committee is, you know what I mean? I just didn't want to give her.
Okay, well then I guess we need clarification on that for sure, because I know that in the council meeting, they stated that in the future that Sean had basically stated that they're paying for that for a transcriptionist to be doing the meeting. So I guess that we just need clarification on what specific meetings will be
I was
transcribed.
thinking like if you go into executive session.
Well, no, I mean, obviously you don't transcribe that, but if it's an open meeting, then it should be transcribed was my understanding, but I think we
Yeah,
just
I
need to
know
make sure.
it might sound obvious, but I just wanted to get the correct information.
Right, thank you.
For her.
Also, if you can check and see if they will be posting them on the website like they do after the council meetings. They post them right below, like, you know, January meeting, they'll post it, that kind of stuff. If they're going to do the same thing, possibly post it under the grievance for that time.
Yeah, I do know that if it's transcribed, it'll be on our website. So
Great, thank you.
The long way around to your answer, Sharon, is you don't even have to copy and paste it. It'll be on the website from a more accurate transcriber than what Zoom is doing for you to print.
And then with Karanda, you have your hand up?
Yes, hi. Another thing that I was curious about, which I want to thank the lady that spoke before me for actually bringing up some of our videos. After our committee meetings, our videos are not accessible on YouTube. So how are we going to address that? I know it took us quite a while for us to actually be able to receive one of the videos, which was in regards to the executive director's search. So I'm just wondering if we're going to address that too, because these videos, that is supposed to be public record, and we're supposed to be accessible to be able to watch that. That was the point of it being accessible to YouTube right now. Due to the pandemic, we're supposed to be able to attend virtually, and YouTube is one of those sources. Also, are the comments from YouTube, are we making sure that those comments are being put in the transcription, or being transcribed in the actual record, so that people can actually review that if they request a written copy of the transcript? Are we providing the transcript in the different languages? Because that is, again, part of inclusion under our DD Act. And I just want to make sure, because I know that, Mr. Charlie, you had concerns in regards to people addressing our grievances, but we actually have concerns of wanting our grievances actually being addressed in a timely and prudent manner. So, and also in accordance with the law. And so if you would like, Mr. Charlie, I would greatly appreciate conversing with you after this meeting so that we can actually address some of the issues that you may have had, that I may have. But also we want to make sure that all populations within our disabilities community within the state of Louisiana is actually being addressed. So when we have a grievance, we actually know the proper procedures, because the document that was provided from OCDD, those complaints are not always addressed in a timely manner. Those complaints are actually put in a very, are not put in a way for people with disabilities to actually complete. So I think that when we're actually creating a grievance process, that we make sure that we make this grievance process accessible for those that are self-advocates also, because there's a lot of them that are actually having complaints as well. So I just want to make sure that we're addressing everybody in every community that's supposed to be addressed according to the DD Act and every other federal law that it applies to. Thank you so much, Madam, Mr. Chairman.
So Cora, that was a lot of questions, and I hope I can remember them all. The first one is on YouTube. So all of the meetings are still on YouTube. If you go to our channel, you're automatically on home. You have to click videos and you can see them all, and I'm looking at them all right now. I can tell you, troubleshooting wise, I've helped a couple people through this, and I actually had the same problem. If your kids watch YouTube, or if you're not signed into YouTube, it sometimes will block a video because YouTube doesn't know that you're an adult. So you have to probably sign in under an adult account. Otherwise it won't let you watch it, but they're all there. I'm looking at them right now. I truly forgot some of your other questions. It was a lot.
Permission to speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, they don't actually be on there. I'm actually subscribed to our YouTube channel, and it took the video regarding our chairman, our executive director search. It took that over 2 weeks before it actually appeared on our YouTube channel. And then the videos actually delete. They actually come off of our page. So we actually end up seeing some, then they come off, then they don't come back up. Our July, part 2 July committee meeting, that one currently is not up. So it's several meetings that are not up that have come down, then they will come back up and reappear. But I'm subscribed to that YouTube channel on multiple devices that are not privileged to my child's viewing privileges, and he's not able to access that. But that is a problem that I'm not the only person in our developmental disabilities community that's having a problem with actually retrieving those videos.
Okay, I'll talk with.
Right, some of the videos are saying private.
Oh, like you click on it and it says private?
Yes, when you click on them, they say private. Some of them also, when you click on them, they're saying that the link is not a working link anymore. So our individuals in our DD council are not able to actually access any of those videos. And if we're following open meeting law and Robert Rules of Order, the public is actually supposed to be privileged to actually reviewing those videos. And just in case anybody needs the Robert Rules of Order and open meeting law, that's under Louisiana ethics.
Okay, so I'll put that as a note just to make sure. I don't know what that is.
I could speak on that if you.
Oh, good. Hannah's here, our IT person.
IT, don't mind the crying in the background. I know a couple of the videos had to be taken down to be redacted for some personal information that was shared. So those were temporarily made private, and we're waiting on LDH to respond and can redact information. And everything else should be public other than those couple of videos. But if you let me know what specific ones, I think only 3 were taken down for redaction, but I can for sure go look. But everything else that I was aware of is public.
Thank you, Hannah. That makes sense. I didn't actually know that, but I'm very thankful that we're doing that because sometimes we overshare. Any other questions that I may be able to help with?
We have a couple more public comments from, sorry, screen just jumped. From Cody Wilson. She says, I could be wrong here, but I think the videos are up as a courtesy, not a requirement. I believe by law, the transcription of the meeting is available upon request, but I could have that wrong.
Cody is correct. Your public meetings don't require you to stream on YouTube. They also don't require hyperlinks to all your documents. It's still a public meeting without a hyperlink. Those are all courtesies.
Then from Sharon Dufresne, I agree with Coranda. The council should be able to change the settings to allow all age groups. From Kathleen Canino, it says part 2 is set to private. And Sharon Dufresne posted a link that I'm not sure what it goes to. And Coranda, also, will individuals on the grievance committee sign a non-disclosure statement? And from Sharon Dufresne, the above link speaks to public comments and their use to defame others.
I don't know. I think when she says, okay, let me just start at the top. The council should be able to change the setting to allow all age groups. Hannah could speak on that, but I know it's not like on our end. It's YouTube decides, is this a child-friendly video or not? Maybe we can, I don't know. Maybe Hannah, you could look into that.
Yes, I can look into it.
It's called the Cobra Act. It's a big deal on YouTube.
Yeah, like when you're uploading it, you have to select if it is for children, specifically for children, which means like if your kids have YouTube Kids, if you say it's specifically for kids, then it would show up on YouTube Kids and it has to follow certain things, which ours is not for children. So,
yeah.
But it should be available for all ages though.
Charlotte, you have your hand up?
I do. If I could suggest that while all of these concerns are valid, it's outside the scope of this ad hoc committee. So if we could maybe write down what those concerns and questions are, and then take it to the executive, to the staff, or to the full committee, whatever y'all want to do. But I don't know that we can address every DD council issue in the context of this format. I don't know that it's appropriate. So I would like to see us just jot down the concerns and move to the next topic.
I would agree, Charlie. I think it would really be the chair to say this, but it's not fully germane to the committee. And
yeah,
also, that's sort of why it's a good idea to hold public comments till the end, But that's just my personal experience in running a meeting.
Yes. Do we have anything else? Anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
I'll second. This is Susan.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Susan. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting. I thank y'all for being here today and the comments from the public and the committee members both. We gained a lot of insight today, and we'll be able to move forward using all of that. So thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mary Lee.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, y'all. Appreciate it.
All right, bye, y'all.
Thank you, y'all.